The court hearing for four Mountaineer football players is officially in the books, and some interesting news came from it. We're going to talk about it here today on Between Eers. Good morning, good morning. It is another episode of Between the Eers. I'm Zac Alley. Before we get started, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button here on our YouTube page at West Virginia on SI. It has been quite the 24, well, no, maybe not quite 24 hours, but it's been quite the last, day or so in terms of West Virginia's football situation with these four guys that are fighting for their eligibility. They had their hearing yesterday. So we're going to talk about that here in just a second. And once again, a look at our show schedule. We do this every single show, so I know it might be a little monotonous for you guys who are here all the time, and we thank you for your support. But for those that are new to the channel, every Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday is an episode of Between Years. Every Thursday, beginning next week, we'll have the Walk Thru GameDay Show with Eugene, Napoleon, and myself, breaking down every opponent or every game for that week for the Mountaineers, and of course, the Mountaineer Postgame Show, which Gene will also join me for to recap the action that just took place. So, yeah, the hearing took place yesterday, and in some ways I was kind of expecting a ruling, but not necessarily. I figured it might be something that comes out maybe later this week. Really, you'd hope that it'd come in the next couple of days, because if these guys are cleared, then they need to get back into shape as quickly as possible. Now, again, you have Robert Morrison week one, so you don't necessarily have to have those guys. You're going to be fine anyway. But you'd like to get them game ready. You'd like to get them caught up to speed, get as many practices under their belt as possible. They've already missed all of fall camp. So this is critical to get them back on the field. And, I mean, they can sit there and study the playbook all they want. Mental reps is one thing, but actually going out there and doing the damn thing is completely different. It's a more obviously involved thing, and it helps you understand your teammates, helps you understand the playbook better. So taking those physical reps is very, very valuable, and those guys are missing out on that right now. So what happened in the hearing? So it lasted, I want to say, maybe close to an hour and a half or so. And I got to be honest, like I wasn't really thrilled with the case, or maybe the information brought forward by the attorneys representing the players. But I really didn't think the NCAA's attorneys or representation did a good job either. I thought both sides, and I'm not somebody that sits and watch court hearings all day. I mean, my wife may have Judge Judy on every now and then.
You're a moron.
But that's about the extent of my judicial kind of knowledge. But it just felt like both sides were just kind of squirming for, searching for answers, and didn't really feel prepared. I don't know. Maybe that's normal. I just didn't feel like either side did a really good job. But the couple of things that the NCAA brought up, one massive one, and then two kind of just like, what the heck? Like, why are we bringing, or one's more of a why are we bringing this up? The other one's like, okay, that's maybe interesting and could have an impact on this particular person's ruling. So let's start with the obvious. Jimmori Robinson. That was quite the bombshell. If you didn't know or hear, the UTSA transfer at Bandit, he's listed as defensive lineman on the roster, but he's going to be a Bandit, would be a Bandit, was suggested by the NCAA attorney to be academically ineligible as well, meaning that his fight for eligibility is basically like null and void. It doesn't even matter, because if he isn't academically eligible, then he can't play anyway. And the reason behind that, he said he failed to complete coursework at his previous school. Again, that's UTSA. There's nothing that has been confirmed with that, so we just kind of take it for what it is at this moment and just assume that that's the case. And if it is, whew, I mean, that's a massive loss. I mean, that was clearly the gem of this transfer portal class. I mean, 10 and a half sacks, 17 TFLs. I mean, the 43 tackles. I know the numbers off the top of my head. I've typed them so many dang times. But losing him would be massive. I mean, we'll talk about the depth and what it could mean for the other guys in that room, who they'll use more often. But if that's true, then yeah, I don't. There's no way he's going to be playing, and I don't know if that's something that West Virginia would have kind of had a good idea about in the first place. You would assume that they had done their due diligence. They understood his situation academically, as they do when they vet all of these players in the portal. But that was quite the shock. So you have that. And then toward I want to say it was maybe the middle of the hearing, at some random point, it was brought up and it was like out of nowhere that Jeff Weimer, the wide receiver, was not listed on the WVU football roster, which is true. We've all known this. He's the only one of the four that's not listed on or on the roster. And the NCAA was like, why is he not there? Even WVU's treating him as if he's not a part of the team. Is he a part of the team? And still, my question comes back to like, why does that matter if he's listed or not? We're here to talk about whether or not the young man can play in 2025, not whether or not he's on the roster. So, I don't know. The academic piece of it, he had to have been enrolled by today. School starts today. So that I don't know. He could be enrolled and just waiting for clearance on his eligibility situation. But him not showing up on the roster, that's to me not really a telling sign. But maybe it's something that the NCAA feels like could be important. I don't know. So with Robinson and Weimer, I think there's always been more questions about Weimer's situation because, and this is another thing that they brought up that was very important, which I kind of had a hunch about because I every time I talked about Jeff Weimer or wrote about him, there was always that gap, right? That he had. He played at Hartnell College and City College of San Francisco, UNLV, Idaho State. But there was a 1 year gap, 23-24, where there's nothing listed. And I just thought that was odd. Now I was trying to figure it out. Like, did he go? Was he at one of those schools and was hurt? Was he suspended? Like, what was the situation? And he was not in school at all. So he took a year off. And in the NCAA's mind, they were questioning why he took a year off and is now wanting that year back. So maybe, and I'm just throwing out my best educated guess. Like I said, I don't know how these things are going to shake out. This is just a guess. But because Weimer and Robinson were brought up, probably Robinson more so than Weimer, but they were both brought up numerous times by the NCAA in their representation. I kind of feel a little iffy about whether or not they're going to get cleared. It just felt like those were the two that they had the biggest problem with. Ty Edwards, the running back, Justin Harrington, the safety. I don't recall their names ever being brought up by the NCAA side of this. I could be wrong, but from what I remember, I did not hear their names brought up one time. And that's not saying that they're automatically probably going to get cleared, but to me, that probably suggests they have a stronger case and that the NCAA is just like, yeah, we don't really have as much against those two in particular. So I don't know. I could be completely wrong on this. Those two may be ineligible, and the other two may become eligible. Highly doubt it because of what was revealed about Jimmori, but still. And then you have the roster limits. Oh my gosh. You would think, you would think that the people representing the NCAA would know their own rules, right? Shocking revelation here that they don't. Brings up the roster limits and how West Virginia has 119 players on the roster. And if you give these four guys eligibility, that's going to take away a spot from somebody else. Da, 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 da. Roster limits are not a thing yet, folks. They're grandfathered in. That's a thing that's gradually coming. And even in a situation, even if it were where they would be taking somebody else's spot, that's not for the judge to decide. That's not for the NCAA to decide. That's for the coaches to decide. So that's completely irrelevant to the point into this case. And here's where I thought the representation for the players didn't satisfy my expectations, I guess. He didn't say anything. He didn't fight that back, dispute it, nothing. He just nothing. Like, man, that was your opportunity to say, like, hey, it doesn't matter. Move on. And even if it did matter, it still doesn't matter because it's the coach's decision. So the NCAA, it felt like they were trying to find ways to cover themselves multiple times. There was a point in time throughout the hearing where the judge asked directly to the NCAA side, had these four individuals been told that they were ineligible or that they weren't able to play any more years in college football? There was a long pause. A long pause. I'm talking like 5-7 second type pause, right? And then when the man starts talking, more bull junk starts coming out. Kind of, oh, yeah. And then actually he's like, can you ask the question again? And, yeah, well, they should have known that they exhausted their eligibility. What? They should have known that their eligibility was exhausted. You got to be kidding me. Like, there was this whole part of the hearing where they were talking, both sides were talking about how that the NCAA had some plans potentially of doing this blanket waiver for all these players that have played junior college ball, giving them that additional year because it's not affiliated with the NCAA, which means that they should have another year. So, what? How would they know if they have eligibility or not? How would they just? How are they just supposed to assume that was the case? And then this is the funny part, even funnier, right? Brings up to the judge, why are these players waiting until August 8th or whatever the date was that they decided to take this to court? Why'd they wait that long? Why? Well, probably because they were thinking that the NCAA was going to give them an answer. And maybe it is their fault that they shouldn't have trusted the NCAA. They should have maybe took it to court earlier. Sure. But why are they not doing their job? If they asked the NCAA, why is it taking so long? That's what I don't understand. But to just think that now he did lay out some dates where they were supposedly told when they weren't going to be eligible. Some were earlier than others. I think Harrington may have been the latest. But still, why assume that these guys know what the hell the rules are? The NCAA doesn't even know what the rules are, and they make them. So It was fun, man. I tell you, it's fun. And like I said, I don't know where this is going to land. I have no earthly idea. I can make my assumptions, my best guesses all I want, and it could come back and I'd be 0 for 4 on them. But like I said, I think you're going to see my opinion. So don't take this as it's going to happen. Two of the four will probably be okay. And if I had to guess, it would probably be Harrington and Edwards, just because their names weren't brought up from what I remember during the hearing. And to me, if there were some serious issues there, then I think the NCAA would have probably pushed and threw out some stuff like they did with the other two. But at the end of the day, it comes back to all four of these guys. And I understand Jimmori's situation might be a little different now that we have learned about the academic piece of this. But still, if we're removing that just for a second, in looking at their paths to WVU, all four of them have only played 3 years of NCAA football. 3. Now, I'm not talking medical red shirts. I'm not talking the COVID year because that's a given. I'm not talking about a regular red shirt because those three things can get you another year. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. The question is the junior college situation. So if they haven't played 4 years in the NCAA, then what are we questioning? The NJCAA is not affiliated with the NCAA. In the NCAA, you have 4 years to play 5 years to play 4. They haven't played 4. It's simple math. So why are we making this such a big deal? I don't understand. You're taking away an opportunity for these kids to go make some money for themselves, but more importantly, to put themselves in a position to go make more money, life-changing type of money, if they were to go and have a good year in 2025. The NCAA brought up how there's been 39 of these damn things and that 35 of them or 34 of them or whatever the number was sided with the NCAA versus the player. Okay. That still doesn't make sense. Why, why, why? Why does it matter if there's a 4 year clock in the NCAA and they haven't met that clock, then what does what they do over here matter? That's what I fail to understand. So I don't know, folks. It's frustrating for the players. It's frustrating. Not it wouldn't matter who it would be. I'd be sitting here saying the same thing if it was another team, another school. The frustration level with the NCAA is just through the roof for everybody. They're tired of it. They're tired of the games. They're tired of the inconsistencies, and they continue to ruin college sports. It's just what it is. So, really quick before we get out of here, because I know we've already kind of talked about this before on an episode when I think this news first came out. But if you didn't watch that episode, and obviously there's some potentially some new pieces moving and shaking on the roster now, what does the depth chart kind of look like? So running back wise, I'm obviously you have Jaheim. I think Dior Hubbard's probably your number 2. Even if Ty Edwards is cleared, I think he's your number 2. Number 3, I'd say Sincere Bowers and or Cannon Katzer are fighting for that spot right now just because they've been in camp, they've been getting the reps. It only makes sense to give those guys the opportunities first. And then Ty Edwards would check in after that. And Tyler Jacklich, the late addition, who was really the insurance policy for Ty Edwards. Ty, if cleared, I think would still be okay to go by week 1. He may not get a bunch of action, but you're really just kind of keeping it simple for him, especially in that first game. You're going to keep it simple anyways. But I think you give him some short yardage situations, first couple of weeks, let him catch his breath, get up to speed. And by the time that he's where he needs to be, then he's going to be that third back in the rotation. If Hubbard struggles for whatever reason, then maybe he moves up to number 2. But I think early on he's going to be a little bit down the depth chart just because he needs time to get ready. Weimer, again, hairy situation with him. But if cleared, I think he's probably the third option at the Z behind Jaden Bray and Justin Smith-Brown. Preston Fox is over there too, so maybe he's behind Preston to start and maybe just kind of gradually works his way up like Ty. But he's been around for a long, long time. Maybe he doesn't need as many reps to get game ready. And if we're talking just game ready for him, we're talking like, hey, just can you give us a handful of snaps in week 1? It doesn't have to be 20 snaps. It could be 6 to 8. Jimmori Robinson at Bandit. Without him, I think it's going to be probably Braden Siders, the Wyoming transfer, Curtis Jones, who moved from linebacker, and then Marshawn Oxley, Keenan Eck. That's my order there. And then nickel Sam, Justin Harrington, he could probably play the boundary safety spot, but I think he's going to play nickel if that's the case, or he is cleared. He'll be behind Fred Perry for sure. And then after that, it kind of gets a little interesting. I think it could be William Davis. Zay Jennings is also in that room. But I think Zay, they believe, is maybe not quite ready. Maybe he is. I don't know. Maybe I just misread that situation. But I think he's probably the number 3 there behind William Davis and could play his way again into that number 2 spot. So it's going to change a lot. The ruling is certainly going to change how they approach things, how they attack the depth chart, and how they distribute reps. So hopefully an answer comes out soon, and those guys are able to suit up if they are cleared for next week's game against Robert Morris. So that was an interesting episode, man. I tell you, holy moly. I need to pound the rest of this Alani right here to get me energized because I feel like I just used all my energy. I got to get some more articles up. So check us out on West Virginia on SI, our website. We'll have several articles up going up every single day, 7 days a week, bright and early in the morning, catching every single angle you can think of. And we will be back here on Sunday with another episode of BTE, which will be our final one before we really start diving into the game prep stuff with Bobby Moe. So thank you guys for watching. Hit that like and subscribe button here on our page. Add West Virginia on SI. We'll see you guys on Sunday. Take care.